What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Trill, bro, dude, and luckily, nothing really happened in the NBA this week. Kind of a chill thing. Nothing really going on. So
that's right. Sort of something that happened. I no longer have the human will to be recognized as, a person. I've waived all of my rights to that. I am now a creature known as Reek, who solely exists to wallow in pain and misery. Again, that has nothing to do with anything that might have happened over, Monday, last night, anything like that, less than 24 hours ago. I no idea what that would be. It's just a decision I made for myself and my family that I would prefer to be known by as an object, as a pathetic creature, as a golem like Smeagol existence within the world.
Awesome. So welcome my new co-host Reek. I was not prepared for this, but
yeah, sorry, I kind of sprung it on you there.
I saw your name was Reek, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck that means, but okay.
Yeah, it's me. It's Reek. I'm a guy. I'm just a little object. I'm not a guy, actually. I'm an object. I have no human permanence. I have no human feelings. I am blissfully unaware of any pain in the world. In my new existence as Reek.
Anyway, there's nothing that has happened in the past 24 to 48 hours in the NBA that could have possibly caused this. This is just a completely random occurrence that Sam has come to on his own.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. Oh, what is this? What am I?
Whoa, that's so weird.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I'm having issues with my computer. It looks like the Miami Heat are in the NBA Finals on Underdog.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Remember how at the end of the regular season, everyone was just like, oh, they beat the Bulls. That's good enough. And they just kind of waved them through. And everyone was like, yeah, that's okay. We all agreed to it mutually.
We said for months, sleeping giants.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Most underrated team coming into the playoffs.
And very understated, like Jimmy Butler, very quiet guy, just kind of goes about his business.
Exactly. Lunch pail,
very,
clock in, clocks out.
Well, just not a lot of hubbub,
No.
Not a lot of, showmanship, just, really is, just kind of a bootstraps guy,
Not theatrical at all.
No theater kid stuff at all.
No element of surprise or entertainment.
And this was expected. It was a little bit, disappointing to see they're undrafted, draft picks only come up, 9 to 10 percentage points in 3-point percentage in the playoffs. It's got to be a little disappointing for Heat fans. I saw a lot of Heat fans saying that was, a normal return to normalcy for them in the playoffs. So, and I gotta say, I agree, but probably on the lower end of that.
So
cope from them.
So I do just want to say, we have the option here, because the Heat are in the NBA Finals because God has forsaken you, and
God has no place in the realm of Reek as an object. I recognize no deity because I can feel no pain. I need no salvation. I do not need to be delivered from any untoward treatment at the hands of a cruel and unjust God.
Yes. Yeah, I understand. Understand. So anyway, Underdog Fantasy is our sponsor. Use the promo code SLOP. Use the promo code REEK.
We gotta get a Reek bet.
Like we're all right. We're 3 minutes into the podcast. Can we do the ad read already?
Okay, we're doing the ad read. Yes.
So, what do you believe will continue? Because I made a pick before Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and in that pick, I was given a layup of free points from Jaylen Brown. And then the other one was Max Strus. I chose higher on his points. And would you guess Max Strus was lower on his points? So I'm going to need you to pick.
What is Caleb Martin's higher lower on points right now?
Caleb Martin higher lower. 16.5.
So we're going to go lower on that.
You think he's regressing to the mean now?
Well, no, I mean he's not. That wouldn't happen. The Miami Heat wouldn't no-show a finals after playing above their head in a hypothetical Eastern Conference Finals that didn't happen. This is because we're not good at this, right? Do they have any 3 points made from any of the second round picks?
Let's see. We have unfortunately it doesn't look like there are any 3-pointers.
Okay. How about we've got what is Gabe Vincent's
we have Gabe Vincent 17.5 rebounds, assists, and points, 12.5 points.
So we're gonna go lower on Gabe Vincent's 17.5 points, rebounds, assists. Again, I'm sure this is a losing ticket because there's no way that the Miami Heat would suddenly not play well.
All right, and then we have Nikola Jokic, who I think is going to destroy the Miami Heat.
The 27.5 points feels the 40. No, let's take the 27.5 points. I feel like
27.5. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go higher on that.
Yeah, that's pretty. I was gonna say actually the half triple double higher looks pretty good, tasty too. Do you think that's
all right? Let's hit that. Yeah, I think the triple double is good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go with the triple double. You put $10 on that winnable ticket. And you
it's gonna lose because there's no way. True. There's no way Caleb Martin would, go from being in contention for Eastern Conference player of the series and then. Because if that were to happen, that would be insane. That would mean that God wants me dead.
Yes.
But as we know, I'm an object freak that cannot feel pain, and thus no God would want me dead. So of course that's a losing ticket. The under.
Yes. If you put $10 on that, you get $60. We're gonna finish the ad read. We're done with this. Promo code SLOP to get a $100 deposit match on Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today if you have not already. It supports the program. So as Sam sits here with me, both of our teams have now been eliminated from the NBA playoffs. The Celtics are out.
Well, mine sort of opted out, because the Eastern Conference Finals did not happen, yours opted out too. The Eastern Conference just didn't happen. So
yeah, we've been opting out for 22 years. We're actually on a labor strike against the Eastern Conference Finals.
The writers, they're in solidarity with the writers.
Solidarity with the writers in Hollywood who are writing the script that is ruining my life in the NBA. Well, that's why, because they're not working right now. So we need to show solidarity with them.
Right, exactly.
But
Miami Heat or Scabs. I'm just saying, if you're a fan, if you're like a Heat fan and you're going to the final, that's scab behavior. So
something to think about.
Something to think about for those Miami fans. Miami fans who traditionally uber left. They love unions and workers' rights in Miami. So yeah.
I have to personally, I'm very excited to see Game 3 of the NBA Finals where it's half empty at the 5-minute mark of the first quarter.
That was real quick before we get into the English stuff. That was crazy. During Game 4, I'm looking at tip-off. There were literally 200 people in the stands, 5 minutes to tip. It's oh my God, man. Anyway.
But that's part of living in a cool city where the only thing to do isn't just going to, there are things to do in Miami. You're who cares if we're late to the Miami Heat game?
There's great food, great nightclubs. You can be part of Operation Condor. There's all sorts of things you can do in Miami. Sorry. Anyway, we're talking about, folks. This is the Philadelphia 76ers podcast.
That's true.
Keep cutting Trill off, but
mostly
what
people are going to be clicking on this video thinking oh cool, I'm going to watch some people.
Yeah. No. We're going to stop with all the weird politics illusions and all the other stuff. We're just going to talk about the NBA, and Trill is going to launch into now why it's good that fascism has come to Philadelphia.
Yes. For the first time since 1776. Fascism is back, baby.
Back in Philadelphia. The sexiest man alive, Nick Nurse.
That's right. Yeah. Shout out to Z. The Sixers have hired former Toronto Raptors head coach Nick Nurse. And before we get into anything else, I have something that is going to cross over really nicely. I was informed last night about Nick Nurse that he is 17 to 18 years older than his wife. So we have, not only do we have a new head coach for the Philadelphia 76ers, we also have some age gap discourse the day after the Celtics lost in the Eastern Conference Finals.
So
let's go.
I'd just like to point out, Eric Spoelstra also famously owning a tremendous age gap between him and his wife.
Yes.
So, however,
key to being a good coach in the NBA.
I was just going to say, Joe Mazzulla, no age gap between his wife, because I'm pretty sure his wife doesn't exist. So the bigger the age gap,
Yeah, that's how you become a good NBA coach.
Yeah, I'm just saying, lock it in. Sixers finals, it's coming.
It's possible. So Nick Nurse gets hired. All the reports coming out. We've kind of known for a few days now, ever since the Bucks hired Adrian Griffin, that it was probably going in this direction. It sounds like it came down to the Suns and the Sixers. The Sixers offered more money, and at least Bill Simmons is convinced that Kevin Young will be the next head coach of the Suns. So the Sixers, after Daryl Morey obviously wanted Nurse, Nurse is an analytics-friendly coach. He is a guy that has a relationship with Morey from his days with the Houston Rockets. He was the G League coach under Morey for their G League team. Of course, Morey is incapable of hiring or signing anyone who didn't have some sort of association with the Houston Rockets. So now we have a definitively Nick Nurse has signed to be the Sixers' next head coach. And my thoughts on this are basically, I kind of said about 2 weeks ago when Doc Rivers was fired that this is the kind of direction that we probably should go in. We should probably go for a coach who is more leaning towards tactician stuff, X's and O's, making adjustments, doing things that are, not necessarily, Doc Rivers and Brett Brown, for as good as they were at times as coach of the Sixers, they're very much like player-friendly coaches, kind of buddy-buddy guys. Nick Nurse is the complete opposite. Nick Nurse is strictly business, which I said it on Twitter and I'll say it again. I think that this has potential to be either a home run hire or it could be a disaster. And in some way, it doesn't really matter because the Sixers need to take a risk like this in order to get over the hump, get back to the Eastern Conference Finals, to unlock Tyrese Maxey next year, to get Joel Embiid playing better in the playoffs, and to honestly just have some form of adjustment and malleability that they have not had in the past. And while Nurse can be a rigid coach, he can be a stubborn coach, I think that this kind of is the guy that they need, just because of the fact that if they don't win this year, it's probably over. Like, I think that at best you would get 2 years out of this circumstance. And these are the kind of risks that you need to take when you're in the position that the Sixers are in. I don't really think you could hire the player-friendly coach again. I don't think you can kind of ignore a coach who doesn't really care about the more tactical stuff when it comes to coaching. Nurse clearly does. I think that he embraces things that Morey embraces. I think that they'll probably be more eye to eye on terms of what, direction the franchise is moving in, what kind of players they want to acquire, and go from there. On the whole, I mean, look, it's a risk. You're hiring a guy who did not get along with players at times in Toronto. You're hiring a guy who, it sounds like, clashed with the last front office with Masai and Bobby Weaver in Toronto, I think largely due to personnel discrepancy in what they were looking for in players. Because if you look at the list, the joke yesterday was when they hired Nick Nurse was, Joel Embiid's knee's going to fall off, his leg's going to fall off, whatever. But I will say, if you go back and you look at the last time that Nick Nurse had a real team, which was 2019-2020, when they had quality players, some depth, some veterans that they can trust off the bench. And then the year before that, 18-19, when they won the finals, those years, their numbers in the regular season really weren't crazy in terms of minutes. It was really after Kyle Lowry left and when the teams, drafted Malachi Flynn, who is not a very good NBA player, and certain guys. And maybe part of that is Nurse isn't a very good developer. I'm not really sure. But long story short here, while he might have his shortcomings as a head coach, I think that everything that was a reflection of the last few years he was in Toronto, when he was playing Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, all that shit a ton. I think that was probably more the fact that he just didn't really like the rest of the roster and the way that it looked than it was kind of his style of coaching. So, as Brian puts out in the comments, Kawhi probably had worse load management than what Embiid needs during the regular season. He knows how to handle that kind of stuff as well, I would hope. So I like the hire. Like, I think that of all the coaches that were available, Nurse was number one on my list because I felt like he's had playoff experience. He's made adjustments. That Celtics series a few years ago, Ben Taylor did a famous video on Brad Stevens and Nick Nurse going back and forth with their adjustments. And the Sixers are in a position where they kind of need a coach that's more like Nurse than they do the, on the other side of the spectrum. And overall, I feel like it even if it's a risk, I like the upside and the potential that Nurse could bring to the Sixers, at least if him and Joel Embiid can see eye to eye for a year or two.
I think they should. I mean, the other thing too is I think one of the big differences between Morey, well, I mean, I don't know. I think that the lockstep, I think, because I think you're right that Nurse is kind of a, can be a little bit pigheaded, and that's what ended his Raptors, tenure prematurely was, he was committed to winning games instead of developing players. And look, I think Nick Nurse actually did a really good job maximizing that roster. I mean, that roster was tough, man, like at the end there, but he got Scotty Barnes Rookie of the Year, which, I think considering some of the other stuff that was some of the other options out there, I think that's looking like that was kind of a coup, just in terms of a system, putting a player in a position to succeed in a system, and I mean, you've mentioned this before. I think that kind of the priority is going to be for this upcoming season, if Harden is gone, which it seems 98%, 99%, that's happening. Like, the priority is going to be unlocking Tyrese Maxey. And I think that, Nurse is going to be able to do that offensively. He's talking about, what was Maxey, 6th in the league in percentage this year? 5th?
3-point?
Yeah. Something like that.
It was something pretty high.
Yeah. He's top 5, top 6 guard with burst off the thing. I feel like Nick Nurse is going to be able to figure that out. I think that where, Masai has always valued raw players who are big, learning how to play the game. I don't think Nick Nurse was necessarily in lockstep with that. Like, I think he wanted more polished players who know how to play. And I think that Daryl Morey will be a little bit more accommodating about that. Like, I think that their philosophies will gel a little bit better, at least for when this counts, for the next 3 years. Because like you said, I think there is a little bit of an expiration date on this, but I think that this is exactly the type of hire we need. I think early in the season, all I kept saying was that I wanted the Sixers to just have more offensive creativity from their coaching staff. And that was like the number one thing I thought kind of holding them back. I think if you can get buy-in from Joel to kind of, especially now that he has an MVP, kind of reprioritize defense in the regular season and not necessarily, always be, putting up these massive triple doubles or anything like that. I think that I think that could really work out for,
No heliocentric Joel.
Yes.
Like, I think that is really the thing that is going to be what Nurse needs to institute as the coach is, let's figure out a system that works with Joel, which is what it sounds like him, Joel, and Morey sat down. Sounds like they got along. They came up with a plan, and he sold the Sixers on this idea of how you can build around a big like Joel in the modern NBA, which honestly, in the regular season, totally great. In the playoffs, it might have a ceiling to it, but we've never seen it with a coach. Brett had some things that he certainly had a lot more movement in his offense. Joel wasn't the player that he became under Doc Rivers. I think that Doc had a really good understanding of what Joel's strengths were and what his, and how spacing worked in the modern NBA and those things. But ultimately, what it came down to for me is that in order to get the best version of Joel Embiid, I agree. I think that he needs to reprioritize the defensive end, kind of always have some sort of level of effort and energy on that end during the regular season, so that when you get to the playoffs, he's great in the playoffs. He was great for 90% of these playoffs, especially on defense. But how can we figure out so that Joel isn't the entire team, so that by the end of these games, he's completely dead? How can we take that burden off of him offensively so that he doesn't have to be the entire offense and the entire defense? And whether Harden's here or not, I'm hoping that Nurse has some creative ideas. Now, he is an offensive coach. He's never really had the offensive talent in Toronto outside of his first year when he had Kawhi and Lowry, and then all of those young guys rising at the same time. Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby. And now he finally has a chance to work with a team that is built around, Tyrese Maxey, who's obviously an offensive first guy, Joel Embiid, who has become one of the better offensive players in the NBA. But I honestly think that defensively, he's going to bring ideas. I think offensively, he's going to bring ideas. And I think that the thing that I'm really looking forward to is how much involvement he has in building the roster. Because mainly, once again, I really thought that the Sixers had a good chance to win and get to the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals this year. And I thought their stars really let them down at the biggest moments of the season. The shooters also went cold at the end of Game 6, but
I have no idea what that's like. Have your stars have a terrible game in Game 7 and your shooters go cold in Game 7.
Yeah, and Game 6.
yeah, that'd be something.
Yeah, that would be absolutely.
Can you imagine if let's say that happened to one of us, and then we had to record a podcast like that 2 weeks ago, and now
that would be crazy.
Yeah, I would definitely not be looking forward to that if I were one of us 2 weeks ago or now,
or a week ago when I described my own personal nightmare and it came true on the podcast.
I wouldn't know what that's like to describe a worst case scenario on the podcast and have it come true.
Exactly. So the upside of this hire is I'm hoping that, like I said, I don't think the coaching matters as much as getting the most out of the stars, and the stars are a big part of that. But I also think that having a coach with new ideas on the offensive end, on the defensive end, to maximize what the stars really can do, especially at the higher levels, is going to be interesting to me. The downside of it is, if Nurse and Embiid don't get along, we could be looking at a Joel Embiid trade request midseason. So but that's the risk you have to take. Morey's job is going to be on the line now because he's on his second coach now. Joel's gonna, he's not going to wait around forever. I don't think Sixers ownership is going to be super patient. So installing a fascist is reactionary, but we need the line to go up on the graph.
Jeez. I will say this. I do think that coaching, matters less than good players. It usually doesn't matter that much, except in the playoffs, and even then, it doesn't matter that much unless you've got let's say an interim head coach gets one of the greatest coaches of all time. But
I think we can say I think he's the
best coach all time.
What's the competition?
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm not a big Phil. I'm not a big Phil guy, to be honest. I think Phil is kind of right place, right time. Yeah,
Phil had the greatest players of all time at their peak.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly done. I mean, so did Spo for 4 years there. he had LeBron. He had
sure. Oh
Anthony
yeah, true.
Powers,
Very good
LeBron.
point. But he's now been to the finals with Jimmy Butler, who we all agree is a great player, and basically a bunch of undrafted Bam Adebayo and a bunch of undrafted players.
Well, Satan. He also has his great assistant coach in Mammon, Asphodel, the great evil. I'll say this about the regular season though. I think that kind of having a good coach can steal you some regular season wins. And boy, couldn't the 76ers this year have used a few more regular season wins. Wouldn't that have been a big difference? And I think that is something that is going to be key to the Sixers in making a run. We said this
we could have
last year
in the first round instead.
I think you guys would have beat the Heat. I think you would have Bam Adebayo. You guys had Embiid to you guys could have destroyed Bam Adebayo like in a way that the Celtics could not. So they would have just injured Joel again, but like probably if in that series
by the end of the series,
they injured Giannis. They waited to
Joel injures himself too.
Yeah.
Like that's another part of it. It's like Joel has to get the fucking poster block on Cam Thomas at the rim. So,
but in all honesty though, I think the Sixers. I think if the Sixers are going to win the title, they're going to need the small advantages like that, because I mean, like we joke about them running into the Heat, the literal craziest outlier in the history of the NBA. Like if you don't run into them, I won't predict that when you guys are playing the Hawks in round one again next year that's going to be a similar. Or the Magic, actually. I
was going to say the Magic
might be a little frisky. Yeah.
Look, my prediction is going to come to fruition. We're getting Julius Randle. We didn't get Bud, but we got Nurse, who has coached a team whose best player was Kyle Lowry. They would have been on pace for almost 60 wins if the season didn't shut down due to COVID in 2020. So Nick Nurse is going to lead us to 60 wins with Julius Randle, Joel Embiid, and we're going to lose to the Orlando Magic in the first round. That's our destiny. But before we move on from the Nurse stuff, where do you think Nick Nurse ranks among head coaches in the NBA right now? Because I was trying to think of this. I think a year ago, if you asked people this question, they would have certainly said easily top 3 or 5. I wonder if people's perception has changed over time and whether we think the demon Nick Nurse is still up there, or do you think that it's like, because we all know Spo's won.
Yeah, Spo's won. I think that's the only one.
Then there's a massive teardrop.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's like Pop, like, but like, I don't know how to properly like rank Pop.
Let's leave Pop aside.
He's just been kind of out of competition for a while. I have no idea.
4 years since he's really had anything.
The NBA is like almost kind of completely, like the NBA playoffs are almost completely different from the last time he had like a real chance. You know what I'm saying? Like the league
6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, were the Warriors even a thing the last time? I mean, I guess there was the one.
Yeah, there was. They almost beat the Warriors. They were beating the Warriors in game 1.
Yeah, the Zaza game. But I forgot about that. But anyway, leaving Pop aside, I mean, look, that's what I'm saying. I think like 2 to like 12 is like a giant tier. Like you've got Ty Lue, you've got Nick Nurse, you've got Bud as much as
no, I agree. I think I would even put Bud. I know that Bud got shit and whatever, but like he's a really good regular season coach and he's won a title. Like I'd probably put Ty Lue 2. Bud 3, Nurse 4.
What do you do with Steve Kerr? Like, what do you see?
Kerr's up there.
Yeah, like is he good or is he like a merchant of Steph Curry?
Yeah, it is hard to figure out.
Yeah, like
Taylor Jenkins, Mark Dagnall, like the newer, younger coaches. Like, how do they fit in?
They've got the Brad Stevens kind of blow right now, like kind of taking a team. Ime. Who fucking knows?
We'll see if he's good with the Rockets this year.
Yeah, he certainly was. He certainly was up there before he went bad guy mode in Boston. So, I think that he's up there. There's just like a ton of people like that. I mean, like hell, I would put Tibbs like in like the bottom 10 in the league last year, and he's probably in the top 15. He was really good this year. Like. Chris Finch was great 2 years ago. Last year, like, what do you make of him getting the Rudy Gobert fucking plopped in his lap with pulling the pin out of that grenade and dropping it in his lap? Like, is he a bad coach now? I don't know. Like
a lot of it is circumstance. And
yeah.
I think Nurse is probably a top 5 or 10 guy, but ultimately it comes down to who your players are. Do you vibe with your players? Is it a good fit for what you're going for? Yeah. And I hope that that's what they see eye to eye on over this summer, and that they can kind of formulate a plan before, everyone fucking hates each other in 2 years and we're blowing this thing to fucking smithereens. So hopefully it works out for the best. I don't know. It is very funny after I spent 2 fucking years on this podcast cursing Nick Nurse's name and honestly that might be the sign of a good coach. Just because as anytime we played them, I got sick to my stomach because it was just like, oh, we got to play the Raptors and then they're going to have a great game plan for Joel and it's going to fuck up the whole team.
I'll say this, that when the Celtics played the Raptors in the bubble, that was like identical to when the Celtics have played the Heat the last 3 years. I think that's the SPO that it's the rat mode thing, that is kind of indicative of a good coach. If you have your team being unethical, little like rodents, then yes, you are a good coach. Like that is the key of being a good coach. The more evil your team is playing.
It's true. Yeah. That might be a part of the reason why we can't bring back Harden is because we need more people to just grime it up out on the court and make, I think that part of Nurse does talk about a lot about like the importance of ball pressure on defense.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that, like picking pockets, putting pressure on ball handlers, which the Heat and the Raptors do a lot, was at least partially due to the fact that both of those teams don't have good half-court offenses.
Yeah.
And the fact that they kind of need to turn teams over to get transition buckets. Yeah. So they would be willing to take the risk. But the other thing I will say is that Joel Embiid being on the back line is a big difference than whoever the Raptors had on the back line to cover up some of those messes.
Yeah, it's not Chris Boucher back there anymore.
Yeah, at one point they didn't even have a center before they traded for Jakob Poeltl. So I think that will help if he wants to continue that ball pressure system. That's the kind of stuff that is going to help in a Celtics series. Like I thought that the Celtics, as they are currently constructed, and we'll get into the Celtics in a minute here, as they are currently constructed, the Heat and the Raptors both realized their main weakness was ball handling, and the teams both put a ton of pressure on their ball handlers on the perimeter when they drove to generate those turnovers, get those runouts, get those easy buckets, and that's ultimately what swung a few of those games and ultimately both of the Miami Heat series that they played against the Celtics in the bubble and now, and then the Raptors competed with them and went to 7 in the bubble as well, almost won that series too. So all things considered, it's going to be interesting to see whether the Sixers go in a more offensive or defensive direction this offseason. I think they'll try to balance it as much as possible, but with a coach like Nurse, it's nice to know that they have at least options and potential to be adaptable. If his offensive ideas aren't working, he's going to have a defensive infrastructure. If the defensive ideas don't necessarily fit the personnel, he might have some offensive ideas that he could bring, because he did start as an offensive coach, and over time he's become known as a defensive coach. And I think that's largely due to the fact that the Raptors had such good defensive personnel and such bad offensive personnel. So
yeah, I think that's look, I think if you want to look at how good a coach is, you look at, did he maximize what he was given? And I feel like Nick Nurse did a really good job maximizing what he was given, like pretty much every year.
Had the Raptors in the playoffs, not this past year, but the year before, the 5 seed. You called that going into the season, but we kind of looked at it more like we felt like they were going to perform a little bit above their heads, which they ended up doing. Yeah. And then they certainly, the Kawhi season, they had Kawhi. So once again, your stars perform like that in the playoffs, you're going to do great. The most impressive season to me was the second season that he had in Toronto. The bubble season almost got to the Eastern Conference Finals, came back from, they were almost down 0-3 in that series.
Yeah, they needed the OG shot in the corner to tie it up. Yeah, or not tie it up, but to stay alive there. Yeah. That game 6 was, I was in a hotel room in fucking Boston during the heat of COVID. It was they had just opened that shit back up. And I was had a mask on and everything. And I was felt like I was hyperventilating. Serge Ibaka, like he kept Serge Ibaka's career alive at that point. Like, remember that.
Yeah.
Serge Ibaka was like clearly cooked. Marc Gasol was
had
also
his
getting
last good
moments
year.
in those years. Yeah, like he was like clearly done, but like was still getting something out. I don't know. I think it's about as good of a hire as you were gonna get. You know what I'm saying?
Do you know what their record was that season? It was a shortened season where they only played 72.
They were the 2 seed, so I know it was high. Like
53-19 that season.
What's that pace adjusted? Like,
I mean, that would have been they would have won 57 games.
Yeah, something like, which is what the Celtics basically what the Celtics did last year. What's 53 divided by 70?
I'm fairly certain that would be about 57 wins. You can correct me if I'm wrong here.
That's 60. It's 60 wins.
60 wins.
Yes.
They would have had 60 wins.
Yeah.
With Kyle Lowry at 32 years old as their best player. Well, Pascal Siakam was good that year too.
You said 53 and 19, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's 50. That's a 73 winning percentage. That's 60. That's 60 wins. So
60 and 22.
Yeah.
With Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam as their best two players. So, and
that's what I'm saying.
Lowry,
Yeah, I mean, like, look, if anything sinks the Sixers, it's just going to be them, like, kind of like running out of talent. But like, Daryl Morey has shown a little bit of a propensity on like these Rockets teams, you know, in the past and some of these other places he's been to kind of find guys out of nowhere. Like, I would not be surprised if Jalen McDaniels took a little bit of a step this year, like in the Sixers system and kind of became a little bit more useful than he was like last year. Like, I would not be surprised they're going to get somebody like whatever they turn Tobias Harris into, or if they manage to get something back from the
Gordon Hayward and Cody Martin are going to cook next year.
So was it Stan said on the broadcast last night he would just sign Cody, and like normally something like that would be stupid, but I'm like kind of like,
okay,
is it though?
Okay, so this is what we will use to transition into the Heat Celtics, because Caleb Martin is really the story of this series, obviously. As I said, I remember on the stream last night, me and Kev were talking about, I was like, remember when there were those Miami rumors about them trying to get Zach LaVine? And they were like, oh, we literally found Zach LaVine, but better on team defense. Like, literally in our back pocket, thanks to J. Cole and Caron Butler. But last offseason, I did a few podcasts where I talked about the targets for the Sixers in the offseason. And on my list of taxpayer MLE biannual exception players, I had both the Martin twins. And I said,
I've always liked them.
Watch
them. They're really solid. They've always been solid. Yeah.
They can handle the ball. They're athletic. The shooting comes and goes. But when you're paying a player $6 million a year, that's just going to happen sometimes. Like, that's just the reality of what those players are. And I always felt like defensively, and then it really proved it to me last year in the Sixers Heat series. I have at least 2 or 3 tweets from that series where I was like, everyone came out of that series being like, we need a dog like PJ Tucker. I came out of that series being like, we literally just need one athletic guy. And Caleb has exceeded all of the expectations that I had expected from him going into this season. I thought when he signed the contract, it was like a 3-year, $20 million deal with a player option on the 3rd year. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right for a player like Caleb Martin, like a guy who's playable most games, who can really be in a lineup that you want to have more defensive intensity, turn the ball over, get a guy who can lock someone up, and then he can stay on the court offensively. He's a nice player. I didn't expect him to literally shoot 60% from the field in a series where he averaged like 20 points a game. Like,
he was the Heat's best player. I'm sorry. Like,
I know Jimmy had the first 2 games, but since game 3, he was by far the Heat's best player.
Jimmy wasn't even like, Jimmy was like gambling and shit and like putting them in like bad situations. Like, Martin had like Tatum in like most of the fucking series and still found a way to get like 26, 24.
Extremely consistent the entire series.
On hyper efficient shooting, usually late in the shot clock against really set defenses. Like, just these high glass window shots over Rob Williams. Like, just really fucking impressive stuff
If he got downhill, I felt like he was going to score every single time. It was like, but like there was, I think it was game 6 we were streaming for. I was like, anytime or maybe it was game 5. I was like, anytime he gets a paint touch, it's an automatic bucket. And
it's not even though, because like sometimes, some of the Heat stuff in this series was like Celtics just playing like bad defense, like a lot of Duncan Robinson shit where it's like they just could not figure out like the backdoor cuts and like the handoffs and some of that stuff. Caleb Martin was like legitimately more often than not guarded almost picture perfect and just was like just a fucking demon. Like he just couldn't miss.
Scoring an ISO, step back threes, like I mean, just like a player like that we just never anticipated this coming from. But this is the roulette of Miami Heat role players that we always talk about. Like one game, one series, it's the Gabe Vincent series. One series, it's the Max Strus series. One series, it's the Duncan Robinson series. One series, it's the Caleb Martin series. And having these role players, and I talked about this with a buddy of mine, and I said, I don't think there's one formula that you can approach the playoffs with. If anything, if you have one formula in the playoffs, I think that your like idea of players that can work or an approach to the game, whether it's like we're only going to shoot threes and rim attempts or whatever, I think you need to be adaptable for sure. Your players need to be adaptable. Your scheme needs to be adaptable. Your coach needs to be adaptable. But the one thing I do know is that players that can generate their own offense are more valuable as the playoffs go on. And the Heat have everyone in the rotation can at least generate some offense to an extent. Duncan Robinson's probably the one that's most reliant on other people running like dribble handoffs, and Max Strus too. But they at least have those actions that and like they can create an advantage off like a dribble handoff and extend that advantage by either making the right playmaking read or just nailing an open three.
Well, they're both movement shooters, which means, like that they inherently are going to get an advantage when Bam does a moving screen. I mean, a regular screen.
He does it so often. I'm shocked they called it last night.
I really cannot. I really can't have that fight as someone who rooted for KG for,
Yeah, I was going to say
6 years. KG was the god.
And it's also funny if you think about like the best defenders. Not to put Bam up there with KG and Draymond because he's not even fucking close, to be honest. But KG and Draymond before Bam were always the moving screen guys. Yeah, like Bam is the new moving screen king, and he gets a good whistle and he takes advantage of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, it's loser shit to complain about any of that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get away with what
shit. You can get away with murder in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the Kyle. It's infuriating. Like the Kyle Lowry shit's infuriating, but like I root for Marcus Smart. You know what I'm saying? Like all of that shit is the same. Free throws. I love that Sixers free throws made you cry. It's really come back. That was like my enemy when I was rooting like for the Isaiah Thomas Celtics, who like could get no whistle whatsoever.
Right.
LeBron would go to the line 30 times a game, and I'd just be so mad. I'd have blood pouring out of the corner of my eyes.
It was working nice for you in Game 6 though for the Celtics.
That's what I'm saying. Celtics are kind of becoming a free throw team now. Celtics get you. I mean, well, let's get into it. I did my autopsy today. I didn't want to do this. I really tried to find a way to not do this. But unfortunately, I have no choice but to. I think you got to lead with Bucks posting. I really do. It's either that or Jaylen Brown. Like you got to kind of.
All right, let's talk about Bucks posting because literally everyone and their mother, including us, a week ago, talked about Jaylen Brown up top. So let's talk about the Bucks posting element of it, which is, if you don't know what Bucks posting is, it is this team can't keep shooting threes like this.
No,
but
we're going to heat up. We're going to heat up. We can't shoot 30% for a series.
So all right, let's put it to perspective.
Here, I've got one. The Heat in this series shot a little bit better than what Steph Curry shot during the regular season this year from 3. The Boston Celtics shot a little bit worse than what Russell Westbrook shot from 3 for the series.
That's a crazy way to put it. I didn't even think about it in those terms.
In the series, okay? And the Celtics were, not, they were a volume 3-point shooting team. They weren't like an elite knockdown 3-point shooting team. They were like 6th
Early in the season they were, but yes.
They're 37. They ended the season 37%. The Miami Heat were like literally the second worst team in the league in things coming into it.
Right.
So you had a negative, I looked this up, it was a negative 7 percentage point swing for the Celtics, 37 to 30, and a 9% swing for the Heat, who went from 34 to 43 in the series. That combined 16% 3-point percentage.
We talked about this after the Bucks series, and we were like, "There's no way."
So that was a 5-game series. That was a 5-game series. This is a 7-game series. Like if it happens for like 3 games, that's one thing. Like the fact that it happened over 7 games and like literally never stopped. And I mean, like, I'll say this. I want to get all this out of the way because I can hear everyone screaming, and this is what, if you talk about this online, this is what you get. Like, very obviously there is more going on in an NBA game, and very obviously there are other elements to this than just like make miss league. Like obviously there, you have what made me sick to my stomach in game 1, where they cut to the bench and Eric Spoelstra, goddamn his evil ass, was like, just don't let them shoot threes. They can't beat us if they can't hit threes. And that motherfucker was so right. And I knew it in game 1. I was like, fuck. He
figured us out.
He knows. Yeah. Does he know? He knows.
He knows.
He knows.
He's Paul Dano.
He is Paul Dano. He knew. And I was hoping it wouldn't come down to that. But like, on top of all of that, the Heat flying out to shooters, the Celtics rattled. The Heat, the Celtics would kind of come and go on their 3-point defense. I think what happened a lot of the time, this happened like 3 or 4 games where the Celtics would play pitch perfect defense for the first 8 minutes of the game, and the Heat would still hit everything. And then it just fucking, the wheels come off at that point. It's like, all right, well, fuck it. like a little bit of a breaking. And then you get some of these more pronounced breakdowns. Some of these are just, Game 6, Duncan Robinson in hitting the fucking logo 3 with 3 minutes to go. Like, all of that said, you're still talking about what good 3-point defense is over a 7-game sample size is usually like a 4 to 5% swing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not this fucking pronounced. There is a pretty sizable element of luck to this, that said, there's so much other stuff going on, but I think what I'm trying to get at here is I think that the Celtics are not and I think they kind of acquitted themselves a little bit of being a soft team or whatever. I always hated that when people call them a soft team. They win so many fucking elimination games. There've been so many big series with their backs up against the wall and won that. They're just like they're a limited team with some of this stuff. They have these limitations that just don't show up like in the regular season. And the Heat in particular, because this is the team they always fucking run into, are the perfect team to take advantage of this. They really are, the Celtics are to the Sixers as the Heat are to the Celtics, like, it's just like, if you run into any other team, you're probably going to be better off than, you probably would have been better off than you would. I would have much rather played the Bucks. Like, I really think the Celtics still could have, even in their like reduced form, still could have like beat the Bucks or some of these other good teams. I said this thing. I still think the Celtics had a shot against the Nuggets, even as much as everyone wants.
I think they certainly had a better shot against the Nuggets than the Heat, but
yeah.
The shooting, I don't really think it can be undersold how well the Heat shot against the Bucks and the Celtics. Kevin Pelton said it on the Low Post. The Celtics, the Heat all year shot 50% as a team or higher 3 times in the first 84 games, if you include the play-in, something that I had mentioned before. They did it 3 times in the Celtics series. They did it twice in the Bucks series. And when that is the shooting discrepancy, it's going to be hard to win. Yeah. But at the same time, where the Celtics lost this series was game 2. Like,
yes, absolutely, totally agreed. Yes,
that's really where they you win game 2, you won the series in 6. Like, it's over. Yeah. Like, you don't need to have this comeback. You don't need to have all the
They probably don't let go of the rope as bad in game 3, and they probably are in the mix, because that was the other thing about this series is the Celtics were dying to get on the road in Miami. Like letting go of the rope in game 3, you blew your home game, which was playing on Miami.
They went 1-3 at home during this series. And the only one that they won was the must-win game 5 to make the series 3-2. But once again, the Celtics lost game 2, and the reason that they lost game 2, that wasn't even a great Miami shooting game.
That was the only one where they didn't shoot.
Right, well, exactly.
And that's the one where they lost it because they didn't play good defense. That's the one. And
the clutch time offense was terrible. They turned the ball over a ton. All the things that have plagued the Celtics forever with the late game offense.
Well, which this is sorry. Well,
no, you could no. You. Well, I want you. This is your team. I want you to cook.
I think that this is my point though. Like because. By losing game 2, you put yourself in that position. That was because that's what the Celtics have always done. They've turned in their homework late, and they lost game 7 because Jason Tatum rolled his ankle in the first minute of the game, and Rob Williams had the stomach flu, and you didn't have any more.
You had no error is gone.
Is gone. You know what happened? You know how Gabe Vincent rolled his ankle and had to miss a game. And guess what? The Heat were able to bring him back because they had a giant lead. Because that's what happens when you take care of business. And that's the difference. Like you want to talk about the real difference in this series. I think it was the Celtics being slow to adapt and slow to get into stuff. I think just that was it. And I think that rests pretty firmly at the feet of Joe Mazzulla. Whether or not that's fair. He didn't have any assistant coaches, but I just think that he did not have the guys ready to take advantage of Miami early enough in that series and let things get to the 3-0 deficit before they really showed up, before they, figured out how to use Rob, got Malcolm Brogdon out of there, unleashed Derek White a little bit more, let Marcus Smart make more plays, made Jaylen Brown a less integral part of the offense. I mean, they understood they couldn't have Jaylen Brown playing. The reason that the Jaylen Brown disaster game 7 happens is because Jason Tatum literally can't do anything. And you have no choice. It's okay, let's try Jaylen Brown, and he just can't. This is the team that he can't do anything against. And so
this was by far the worst series he's ever had. We talked about early in the series, this probably might end up being one of his worst. He shot 17% from 3. He turned the ball over 8 times in the last game. He had multiple games with 5 turnovers. Yeah. He could not dribble. And a lot of them didn't even feel sometimes it was Miami getting their hands down when Jaylen would put the ball on the ground on a drive. But sometimes it was just he lost the ball trying to do a basic dribble move. And
also, it happened multiple times. Russillo clipped one of these in game 3. He did it twice last night. These things where it's 17 seconds in the shot clock or 14 seconds in the shot clock. And he's just fucking pulling. Yeah. No paint touch, no nothing.
That's where we need to have a discussion about Mazzulla ball and what was formerly known as Morey ball.
Yeah.
Which is the 3-point variance. And do we think that, and by the way, I want to put this out there. Obviously, yes, you can win a championship with a ton of 3-point variance. But the Warriors had Steph Curry.
I was going to say, we've really only seen it once, though, and it's a historical outlier of historical outliers.
Yeah, two of the greatest shooters of all time, the greatest shooter of all time in Steph Curry, who can create his own shot, who can shoot off the catch, who can shoot off movement, who can do anything on the court. And then the other team that you're looking at that's on the other side of the Heat in the finals now is the Denver Nuggets, who have maybe the greatest post-shot creator for definitely the greatest post-shot creator for 3-point looks in Jokic, because he's just going to create a ton of threes, whether he's collapsing the defense and getting the defense in rotation, and then it's swing, 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 or he's finding the shooter, and he's also going to be able to get those rim attempts. I think the what it really comes down to here for the Celtics is having the ability to pivot off of that kind of offense And they largely were able to do that at times until the playoffs. But once Jason Tatum gets hurt, then you have nothing except for let's throw up a ton of threes. But in game 6, when even Tatum was healthy and everyone was fine, except I think Brogdon missed that game, maybe.
Brogdon was out.
Yeah, Brogdon missed that game. But they shot, 20% from 3 as a team?
Yeah. That I will say in game 6, though, especially when they got tight down the stretch, I thought the process was way fucking better.
It was, but you're once again relying on, you're doing what the Sixers did at the end of game 6, where you're relying on role players to hit their threes, which is generally okay, but in a big playoff game, anyone can go cold. I'm just going to put it like this.
Okay.
I like putting the end of games in my stars' hands, and if it ends up that the best look is a Grant Williams corner 3, that's fine. He's a good corner 3-point shooter. You can live with it. But ultimately, at the end of games, I would prefer my stars determining whether I win or lose a game. And Miami in these clutch moments, even when Jimmy played like shit for most of game 6, showed up at the end of the game. Caleb Martin showed up at the end of the game in a way that in game 2, when I felt like the Celtics lost the series, that Boston Stars weren't able to show up, and that's ultimately what swung the series.
For sure. No, definitely game 2. I would say game 6, Jason Tatum got to the rim like a bunch of, it was not just, getting isolated. He just missed bunnies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they missed a lot of good shots in game 6. But and again, that shit sometimes happens, but the thing is, game 2, we're talking about game 2. We're talking about letting go of the rope in game 3. We're talking about what happened in game 7, and I think this is what happens. And I mean, so now we get to kind of finish the broader macro discussions we had about the Celtics after game 3, when we thought this thing was over, and it was, but we just, had a week to really let me bleed out.
How weird is it that we've now had, this was the 4th time that a team's come back from 3-0, and they've never, even when they're the favorites and they have home court advantage, and I know the Celtics weren't a great home team, but we were saying this was the difference between this Celtics team and every other team that's ever been in this position, is that they're almost always underdogs coming back when the favorite kind of fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. This was the opposite, where the favorites fell asleep at the wheel for the first 3 games, and then they had to win 4 in a row. I guess what I basically said on the stream last night was like, we've had 2 sweeps in this whole playoffs, I believe.
Yeah.
I think the only sweeps were the Lakers and the Nuggets. The Nuggets swept the Lakers, and then we also had the Sixers sweeping the Nets in the first round.
Yeah.
And that Nets team is not a playoff team.
I was going to say the Nets are heading for the championship loser belt. If the Denver wins,
lost to the team that lost. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So, and that makes sense because they were not a playoff team. If you extrapolated their record over the course of the season, they wouldn't have even made the play-in, I don't think. So, I guess my whole point on this is that it's really fucking hard to sweep a team. And if you're in Boston's shoes, you had to reverse sweep for the first time ever. And I guess that's really what it just comes down to, is like, it's hard to sweep a team, especially a team that's had your number in the past, especially a team that has the playoff track record that Spo and Jimmy and all those guys have, which is honestly why, as we shift to this finals conversation, like, I think Denver's definitely the better team. But I also think that, like, Miami has some experience. They've been there before. I think that, I'll let you get your takes off in a minute. But, and I do think that the Nuggets are going to win this series. Don't get me wrong. But I wouldn't be shocked. I think I'm going to pick Nuggets in 6. I wouldn't be shocked if we're sitting here in a few days saying, how the fuck did Miami go into Denver and split? like that's just how Miami has operated this whole playoffs. They're just when you think you figured them out, they throw another haymaker at you. They figure out another way to win a big game. I think Denver's by far the better team. I think that they've shown it all throughout the playoffs, even if I still will maintain that deep in my soul, I believe the West is worse than the East. but I think that they've been the best team in the playoffs by far. I think they've beat everyone who's in front of them. They've looked incredibly impressive, and I think that this is going to be. I think that this might be a 6-game series where the Nuggets are just clearly the better team. Like it doesn't like Miami might steal a game or two, but I don't think that it's going to come down to. I don't think it's going to be like every single game's close, like even that sweep was against the Lakers.
I tweeted this last night, and I'm sticking to it. The Heat immediately going to 33% from 3 in this series is just going to feel like a shotgun to the chest for me. Like I'm really not going to enjoy my time watching that happen. But I mean, look, this is what the Miami Heat do. They're a Gladio stay-behind operation for the Western Conference. They're designed to weaken the East, to make them look bad, and then immediately get to the finals and then show their soft, shitty little underbelly to whatever West team romped their way through. I mean, I will admit this. I think this Denver team is way better than that Lakers team that, stomped out the Heat last time they got here. That Heat team was a lot worse too. They did not have.
Hold on, you think that this Denver team is way better than the 2020 Lakers?
Yes. Oh, yes. So much better.
I had this conversation last night, and I think it's closer because Bill said on his podcast this is the best team he thinks. He thinks the Warriors or the Nuggets are the best team since the 2019
Warriors,
the KD Curry Warriors.
Yeah.
I think that Lakers team was pretty good. We might be doing the 2019 Raptors thing where everyone looks back on that team and goes, wow, that team was so deep and good. How did they not run through teams? And it's like, okay, well, Pascal Siakam got better after that, and Fred VanVleet got better after that, and OG Anunoby got better after that. Like and Kyle Lowry was still in his prime and blah, blah, blah. The Lakers looking back now, you go, oh shit, they had Caruso and they had Kuzma and they had KCP and they had all these guys that their image have been improved since the bubble. But that AD LeBron duo, I know, look, Murray and Jokic have been amazing. I think if you were to stack up all these players and their playoff runs, Jokic would be probably 1. And then I think you could make the argument that that version of LeBron and AD would be 2 and 3 and Murray would be 4. But like, that duo as a two-way duo, offensively, of course the Nuggets are better. Not even close. Like they've been dominant offensively all throughout these playoffs. As a two-way duo, that Lakers team was really fucking good. They had an elite defense. That pick and roll was incredible. I know their shooter shot great in the bubble, and that helps it look a lot better in retrospect. But that team was really, really good. Like, I think people forget how easily they kind of handled everyone until Jimmy went absolutely sicko mode in that game 5 in the bubble in the finals. Yeah. But they won every series in 5 in a strong Western Conference. Like,
yeah, I mean, look, hey, the Lakers, the Nuggets might have KCP, but the Lakers in 2020, they had great players like KCP. You want to know?
The Nuggets have a lot of really good players. I'm not hating on the Nuggets. I'm just saying that I think that it's closer. The Lakers and the Nuggets, the 2020 Lakers and this version of the Nuggets, if they played against each other, I think it would be a 7-game series.
I do not agree.
LeBron was still LeBron at the time.
These teams played when Mason Plumlee was on the Nuggets, and it almost went if Mason Plumlee doesn't blow that Anthony Davis coverage, that series goes. Then
the Lakers goes in 6. The Lakers win in 6.
I mean, I don't know. They win in 6 because it changes. That was a game 2. That would have been a 1-1 tie. Like,
it happens. So we can do this with every series. All right, let's go back to the Raptors run. Let's go to the Bucks run. Like, we can do this with every playoff run and say that.
I think that Lakers team is like one of the most overrated teams of all time, and I think we can get back to that. But the fact that they needed 6 to beat the Heat when Goran Dragic got hurt and Jimmy was dying, and that was like one of the worst. That was the worst of the Heat Eastern Conference Finals.
That series wasn't close though. They blew them out 3 times.
Still 6-game series, and the 2 of their 3 best players were hurt. Like,
I think that team was good. I mean, I think they were a little bit shallow. I think they were good.
Anyway, my point.
They went 52-19. They were going to win 60 games that year. Look at their record. They only lost to good teams. Danny Green was still good. Like, I'm telling you, that team, Dwight Howard was functional as a backup center. Like, I think that team was good.
Mickey Mouse shooting. They're on a Miami Heat run. Like, I don't know. They honestly were doing what the Miami Heat is doing right now. But anyway, neither here nor there. My point here is I've been very disrespectful to the Nuggets. The Nuggets would have been like, the Nuggets were, in spite of the West being like bad, the Nuggets still took care of business, and I think they still deserve a plate. Like, they're still a very good team. Like, they would have been a top 1 or 2 seed in the East if they had switched conferences, which I, for example, wouldn't say about the Grizzlies, let's say. So I think that they
were the Kings.
With the Kings, yeah. Like, seriously,
who were the 2 and the 3 seed.
Yeah. By the way, if the Heat win, the Kings inheriting the loser belt, which is going to hurt my heart.
Oh man,
yeah, that'll really sting. That'll really sting on top of everything else. But I think that the Nuggets, I don't know, man. I mean, like, the Nuggets have less. The Nuggets are a way worse matchup for the Heat than the Celtics are. A functionally statistically identical team, essentially. Just in terms of like point differential and like games won and all that other shit. Like, and you needed the Heat needed the Celtics to have like one of their worst 3-point shooting series of all time, and for them to have one of their best 3-point series of all time, and they still almost blew it. I don't know.
The Nuggets have a real home court advantage. Let's be first off. The Nuggets have a real home court advantage that they will have all 4 games in Denver, which is huge. They have the best player in the series in Nikola Jokic, and honestly, Jimmy looks fucking dead, dude. Like, I am surprised how little coverage it got. That Jimmy Butler was because he's still a great player and he's still going to put up stats. I thought he was a shell of himself in the last 4 games of this series. He
went Ben Simmons mode. Like, he got bailed out so hard by Caleb Martin. I'm kind of shocked he won Eastern Conference. Like. Yeah. The player of the year, and that's even independent of my hating. Don't get me wrong; I'm absolutely hating on Jimmy Butler. This is very personal, but
yeah, you're not like me and Kev cheering from the cuck chair on the.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm in the what is it? I'm in the being unconsensually cucked. I'm under the unconsensual cuck bed, fighting to get out.
You're the Nick Nurse gif where he's shocked.
Yeah.
When the husband walks in on his wife cheating on him in the porn.
That's me. I'm shocked. I'm like locked in the like I'm not in the chair consensually. I'm like locked under the bed being forced to watch. That's where I 3 years in a row I've been forced to watch in the bed, the underbed cuck space. I mean, like, look, I just don't. I know, and look, I can hear myself repeating myself. I really thought I wanted the Celtics to sweep them so bad. I wanted, God.
If we're here in a week and we're talking about the series being split, I just don't even know how we'll continue on. I'm giving them 2 games. I'm giving them 2 games. I can't doubt the devil magic anymore.
I need to believe. I'm sorry, Sixers fans aren't going to want to hear this. I need to believe in the fat man. I hate to side with the calculator rats, but I've got to choose the lesser of 2 evil.
He's been the best player in the playoffs. Yeah. He's and something that Bill brought up and something that a lot of people brought up. They get a really good shot every possession because of him, and to a lesser extent because of that Jamal Murray 2-man game.
He's so good with passing, and like the Heat are so predicated on like rat mode and stuff like that, and it just seems like he's going to take care of the ball so much better. And he's so big, like. Scam Fraudabayo is going to be in hell. Like,
well, what's the thing?
They have no bigs. I was going to say, you're going to play Cody Zeller? Like, what?
No. What's the one thing that Miami, like, defensively, they're a really good team defense. The one thing they always struggle with is rim protection. And Jokic is going to take it to. I heard a stat earlier and look, some of the matchup data shit is kind of weird and wonky, and it's not perfect for sure. But someone sent me this stat that Matt Moore, a friend of the podcast, HP Basketball, read on his show. In the 44 minutes Bam has tried to guard Jokic this season. Jokic is averaging 50 points and 25 rebounds in those 44 minutes, which I would imagine Miami's going to get killed on the glass, which is something that they've used to their advantage. They actually did lose the rebounding battle in the Celtics series, I believe. But I would imagine Miami's going to lose in the glass. They struggle with rim protection. Jokic is going to pick them apart, whether it's with his passing from the perimeter to get back cuts and things of that nature, or it is just to kind of take Bam in the post and score on him over and over. The Miami is probably going to try to slow the game down. Denver can beat you if you slow the game down. If Miami wants to play with pace, Denver can beat you with outlet passes and getting out running with their guys. And I think that Denver is definitely the better team. I think they have the best player. I think that this rest is going to be super helpful to them because I think Miami might, I mean, like I said, I just don't think that, I don't know if it's the injury or if it's just he's running out of gas, but Jimmy Butler does not look quite the same. I'm sure he'll have one or two insane games in the finals that'll make me eat my words here, but it would be the greatest upset we've ever seen, but the Heat have already had the greatest first round upset, the greatest Eastern Conference Finals upset. Like, you can't fully count out the zombies until you see them die. You shoot them in the head, you watch them die in front of you. And that's what I expect Jokic and the Nuggets to do. But I'm kind of taking the coward's way out here by picking them in 6 because I'm tired of trying to use logic when it comes to the Miami Heat.
Olive branch to the Nuggets fans who have been so disrespectful to in here. Nuggets in 4. Let's go. Ride or die. Jokic. Sir, I don't want to. I was going to say some like Balkans thing, but I don't want to get murdered by
Nurkic.
Yeah. Also, well, I also have Albanian friends, so I really feel like I can't pick sides here.
Exactly. Yeah. This isn't the Patreon part, so if you guys want to hear some stuff that I've said, they'll probably get me killed in the Balkans.
Trill and I break down the Balkan conflict. Where we come down on things. That's a Patreon episode coming out here.
Let's go parody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's. I mean, also like. I guess I should probably care because I have a podcast about the NBA, and I do streams where people need to watch the finals in order. I don't care about the ratings at all. I don't give a fuck that it's going to be low rated. Who gives a ship?
Cuck opinion.
It's a stupid thing to care about.
As a fan, you're a baby and a wiener. If you I don't know, just the concern trolling stuff. Like, do you ever worry about like football ratings?
No.
Are you ever like wound up about like baseball or hockey ratings? Like,
I was gonna say, I guess baseball and hockey's more similar to the NBA because the NFL just has such a baked in, like the Super Bowl is its own thing, like it's its own spectacle. So like the NBA is different in that it is sometimes matchup dependent. Like last year, for example, last year's ratings, the Celtics and the Warriors were massively better than the Suns and the Bucks the year before, but also, like, if you're a fan, like, I think this is going to be I think that both of these teams can be fun to watch, unless you're playing against the Miami Heat and you want to die.
I mean, that's a good point about the football, though, because, like, you know, it is kind of a mystery how the NFL football holds fans' attentions for 82 games in a season, and that's right, they play less regular season games than that. That's so weird because there's just no way to. There's no way you just never have a shorter season where the games are more important. It can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, best of luck if the 8 seed wins. I will say I don't care about the ratings, but best of luck getting anyone to ever give a fuck about the NBA's regular season again. If the 8 seed beats a 1 seed, a 2 seed, and then a 1 seed again.
Yeah.
That would be extremely funny.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, everyone's Jimmy has tons of people in the cuck chair. You know, like this is very fun for a lot of
Bulls
people.
fans, Sixers fans,
Wolves fans. Everybody's in the cuck chair.
He almost went to the Rockets. Rockets fans are probably cheering for him.
Yeah. You know, a lot of the theatrics are very adorable. As covered by ESPN. He's good friends with Rachel Nichols, who's never done anything bad. This is it's perfect. Am I hating on Jimmy on a level we've never seen before? Maybe, was I? God, I'm really upset I didn't get to use. I had some really good stuff in the drafts for if the Celtics won Game 7 for Jimmy Butler.
You'll never get to use.
I'll never. Well, for till next year.
We'll
but
see. When Scoot Henderson's on the Celtics?
Look, you think don't threaten me with a good time? Come on now.
Oh my God. Okay, so I've said this statement before. We didn't even talk about Jalen, but I've said this statement.
By the way, I just want to say I continue my fan mental illness take that I think the Celtics can run it, be fine, and can run it back and be fine. Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to run it back and be fine.
Yeah.
So I personally kind of hope they do. Not to say that obviously the Celtics have our number. We might just never get past them. But I hope they do because I see the alternative already laying out. Jaylen Brown goes on the trade block. There's a bidding war for Jaylen Brown because the Nets are like, we want to keep Mikal Bridges and we want to have a 9 seed and we like him. He's a nice man. And Masai's like, I want 7 first-round picks for Pascal Siakam, or I'm not trading him. And then there is one all-star that is available on the open market. It is Jaylen Brown. The Portland Trailblazers and the Houston Rockets and every team that wants a star all bid like crazy to get him. And the Celtics end up with a king's ransom for him, which they then hold on to. They draft, let's say, Scoot Henderson, and they keep either Anthony Simons or Jalen Green or whoever they get back. And then they sit on their shit and they're competitive again next year. They're a good team. And Scoot looks like a future superstar and da-da-da. And then a year from now, we're sitting here talking about the Celtics having the best trade package for Luka Doncic and me jumping off a fucking building.
I'll tell you why that won't happen. And I'll also address Brian's comment, Celtics second round exit next season, because the Celtics are in purgatory. In fact, the Sixers are too, because that is what drives you insane as a fan.
The Celtics made the finals. They've been to 5 Eastern Conference Finals in 7 years.
Let me cook. Okay, because this is what I'm talking about. Because everyone says the Celtics are, this is what I hear all the time. Is like, oh, this is 5. I was way more happy when the Boston Celtics won 48 games and went in as like a 4 seed. And you know why? It's because it's fan brain. The same way, like Sixers fans, I bet you would be fucking annoyed if Nets fans say, "Oh, we just want to win a playoff series."
Sure.
Oh, we just want to taste winning a playoff series one more time. That sounds stupid to you, right? Because it still fucking hurts when you lose in the second round. What drives you insane as a fan is when the same fucking thing happens to your team 5 years in a row. That's what drives you fucking insane. So the fact that the Celtics have never won the title that they've. It doesn't matter to me that they are operating hypothetically on a tier a little bit above the 76ers. Like, if anything, that's almost worse because they still do not win. They still lose, and they are still like I'm saying this as a way to. I'm not trying to dick measure pain with Sixers fans. Don't talk to me about the Patriots and the Red Sox. I don't care about those teams. I don't fucking care. I'm talking about what drives you insane and how bad it hurts when they lose. That is, I've watched sports for 31 years. That hurt more than any sports thing in my life by orders of magnitude, times 2. Kendrick Perkins tearing his ACL in Game 6 and losing a rock fight to the Lakers in 2010 in Game 7 didn't hurt as bad. Losing to the Heat in Game 6, Game 7 didn't hurt as bad. The Tyree catch in the Super Bowl, blowing the undefeated season, didn't hurt as bad. Nothing was ever even anywhere near any of that because this is my team. This is my fan brain right here. Sure. This is my team that I've been locked in more. I've watched these guys get drafted. I've watched these young guys. I want more than anything. I want this team to win. I want this team to banish the other teams around them. I've had a very tight psychic bond to this specific set of guys. Rob Williams, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. That's why I don't want to trade Jaylen Brown, because I want that sports nirvana. I want that to happen. And I think in this series, this was the door on that kind of, I'm saying run it back. The door on that is like kind of shutting, and it's the one more time of pounding your head against the thing. And I think Sixers
you guys have blown 2 golden opportunities.
Yes. Blown 2 golden opportunities. Yeah. I know Sixers fans, you guys had the Kawhi shot, you got all this other stuff. What really, you talk about how you'd throw a parade down Broad Street if they made the conference finals, right?
And then if they lost, we would want to kill ourselves.
Yes. Well, this is what I'm just saying, it's because nothing changed, right? You know what I'm saying? The Sixers just keep losing the first or second round. And they've had a good team this entire time, a team that should hypothetically sniff this thing. Even when things have broke their way, it hasn't happened, right? That's what drives you insane as a fan. And it's very rare these days that teams are in that situation where you have a legitimate chance to win the title and you still keep fucking losing.
You're in the okay. So right now, what you're describing is you're in the Donovan McNabb, Andy Reid Eagles era.
Yes.
They made 5 conference championships. They got to a Super Bowl.
Yes.
And they never won. And every year it felt like, they're the best team. They have the best team. They have the best team. And then every year they came just short, and it drove you fucking mad, right? This is almost identical. They've both been to 5 conference championships. They've both been to a Super Bowl. But the difference here to me is that Jason Tatum is 25 years old. And that Jason Tatum, if anything, I know it's not consistent, but all we have learned from every championship from the past 30 years, except for one outlier championship and that Detroit Pistons one, is that you need to have an all-time great near his peak. And Jokic and the Nuggets are probably going to win, and we'll prove that again this year. Giannis with the Bucks, Steph with the Kawhi with the Raptors, LeBron with all his teams, and Jason Tatum. We can talk about Jaylen Brown all day we want. I saw an insane tweet from Bill Barnwell yesterday about comparing Jason Tatum and
to Scottie Pippen
and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And
those guys didn't come into the league until they were 22. Both of them.
And also, more importantly, obviously comparing Tatum to Jordan is insane. But more importantly, comparing Jaylen Brown to Scottie Pippen is fucking blasphemy.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown's a very good player, but we're talking about a guy that some people don't think is a top 30 player in the NBA.
I don't remember Scottie Pippen ever climbing into a game and strangling it in its crib the way that Jaylen Brown did the game 7 yesterday.
Sure. And
that was an all-time I'm not him performance. I love Jaylen, but good God.
It was a disaster.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting in a position where maybe you can make a contract work that isn't the supermax that we discussed before. Maybe it's more of a max contract, but it's still going to be a lot of fucking money. And I still think that the bet to make is on what keeps Jason Tatum happy and what keeps Jason Tatum basically if Jason Tatum wants you to bring back Jaylen Brown, like he says, you probably should just do it. Even if that's
probably what's going to happen. Yeah.
And there probably is some downside to that, but keeping your superstar happy and the idea that Jaylen Brown is going to be completely untradeable. Okay, if he gets a supermax, I think he will be completely untradeable. If he gets a max, okay, maybe a team could talk themselves into him paying him $40 million a year, $45 million a year, whatever, insane money. But he also didn't get paid on his first contract, so he's going to want to get paid on this one. But once again, I think that the Celtics are kind of in a win-win situation because I would imagine Tatum gets better, and he's 25. I would imagine that Tatum, by the time he's 28, is going to be one of the 3 or 4 best players in the NBA. And if that's the case, then you have a chance every single year, no matter who you put around him. And the Celtics have done a really good job of team building. So I personally think that I would be open to trading Jaylen Brown just because I don't think his trade value is going to get any higher. And I'm also what is the one thing that the Celtics are really missing? A dynamic. I mean, I guess if Tatum gets better and continues to improve as a playmaker and the 3-point shot regresses to where it was 2 years ago, then you don't even need a Scoot Henderson type necessarily. But it would be nice to have a guy who is in that mold.
I will admit, getting Baby Russ on the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, here's the
It's
thing.
like, it's like, oh, he can't shoot. Well, it's like, well, hey,
Well, I think Scoot. Well, yeah. I mean, I think Scoot shooting indicators are. I think he's going to be a shooter. Like, I don't think he's going to be like a knock, but I think he can get to like where De'Aaron Fox is right now. And like De'Aaron Fox is the offensive engine for one of the best offensive teams in the NBA, and it transferred to the playoffs. So like, I kind of think that, and the problem is Scoot's 20, and you don't have 10 years of runway to figure this out. You probably have 5 years of runway while Tatum is in his prime and on his next contract to really figure that shit out. But like, I'll say this much. It is enticing to me, because if we were sitting here a year ago and I said to you, you can trade Jaylen Brown for maybe not Franz, like Simons isn't close to Franz Wagner's level as a prospect, but like you could trade him for a Simons level prospect and Paolo Banchero, you would be like, that's pretty enticing. Yeah, Scoot probably would have went number 1 in the last draft. And I think the teams are really doing the thing that they do every other year, where they're just like, is LaMelo really that good? Is Luka really that good? Yeah. Is Mobley really that good? And it's like, yeah, they are really fucking good. Scoot's really fucking good. Like, and the shoot. By the way, the shooting question marks. I just want to mention that Scoot shooting numbers aren't as bad as they seem. Like, they were 28% or whatever. He actually shot 33% when you included the showcase games and the game that he played against Victor Wembanyama and his team. And then also he had a decent shooting year with the G League team a year ago. And keep in mind, they shoot from the NBA 3-point line. They're not shooting from the college line like a lot of these college guards do. Like, they are shooting NBA threes. So like, he will step in, and it might take him a year or two, but like, he has some touch indicators. He can shoot from the mid-range a little bit. Like, he's a decent free throw shooter. He's got touch around the rim. Like, I think Scoot is going to end up being like an above average shooter, and everyone will be like, oh, well, that was kind of stupid. We questioned that.
Got it. So draft night? Because you need the Hornets to take Brandon Miller.
Yeah, that's happening.
You think that's happening?
I mean, anything can happen when a guy has...
You don't think that's a misdirection? I guess the Hornets aren't necessarily the most savvy franchise.
Mitch Kupchak doesn't really do that stuff. And I also just want to say that it could be a misdirection. Maybe I'm wrong. The only reason I can't say it's a lock is because of the off the court shit. Like, if they bring him in for an interview and he's just like fucking it up, and he's not apparently he's not answering any questions about it because he says he legally can't and blah blah blah. I mean, God, Scoot's still 19, dude. He's still 19. He doesn't turn 20 until next February.
I gotta say, as a Celtics fan, that's pretty appealing to me. Be able to do he's only 19 thing again. I mean, that's the problem is that he's
so young.
That's a tough sell to your team that's trying to win now, to take out a guy who they've been in how many wars with? Like, that's literally a lifetime of playoff experience. Like, and that's a tough sell to all those guys, you know.
It's certainly a tough sell. Yeah, absolutely. I think that Scoot could be like position. I mean, it depends on what you do. If you think he's going to be a superstar, I'm sorry, who gives a fuck about Marcus Smart's? But like, and also, you do, but I don't think the Celtics front office really.
Pete Weber.
Also,
what do you think you are? I am.
Marcus can play the 2. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Scoot. Oh God, I don't know. Maybe I'm too Scoot pilled. I've been watching more and more Scoot shit, and I'm just like, this just seems like a guy that's such a no-brainer to me that in 3 or 4 years, everyone's going to look back and be like, why did we have those question marks pre-draft? Like, I think that he's going to be closer to a De'Aaron Fox, John Morant level player than like a lot of these guys that are like question marks.
I'll say this from the calculator rat perspective: if you can genuinely get Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson for Jaylen Brown, you probably have to make that deal. You know. That said, the NBA is not a calculator.
No, it's like human beings.
You're gonna piss off Jason Tatum. You could fuck up a team that doesn't necessarily have the strongest record in terms of like being able to overcome weird shit. Like, they've been derailed again. You know, like, do you really want to make your put your locker room in a weird place again after all the Ime shit hung over this season for so long. Like,
yeah. Well, I guess Brian's point is, and so Celtics Matt had one take on this, and Brian has a take. Brian's taking the comments is the problem is Jaylen Brown isn't going to get better.
Yeah.
And Celtics Matt, his opinion on it was, and Matt is not a Jaylen guy. He's always been
hard out. Yeah, he's hard
very out on Jaylen, but he's also said you should probably just extend him because he's 26. It's not like Bradley Beal where you're extending him on the Supermax at 29. And it's not like these guys that are 35 by the end of their contract. Like Jaylen at the end of his contract will be just entering his 30s. So that's the upside, I guess, if you're extending him. But the downside is if he even is like not an all-star next year and he's making $45 million, like we just saw this with Zach LaVine.
There's two. So the two things here are, one, how often do you think you're going to run into Miami in the playoffs from here on out? Which,
in theory, it should go down.
I mean, like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, I think, are both unrestricted free agents with the new CBA. Like they're going to get crushed by that. Like, oh, sorry. That's the other thing I forgot to do on the Denver.
I think they're going to dump Tyler Hero.
Well, so that was what I was going to say. Is that's the other thing in the Nuggets' favor is that Tyler Hero might come back to game 3. And then it's Jover. Once Tyler Hero's back in the rotation, it's Jover for the Miami.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
they might need him after they're down 0-2, though. There might be some baddies courtside.
Yeah, but Tyler Hero,
Miami,
the Denver courtside.
No, it's gonna game 3's in Miami, so that's.
Well, but game 5, he'd have to. Yeah. You assume he knows about the Miami courtside baddies.
He'll be twerking for some girls on shrooms in the front row in Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be delivering a package to Nicaragua. Some people who are being trained out there. Hey, what are you guys working on? Oh, okay. All right. Never mind. I'm a guy. It's funny how it was American Airlines arena, not American Air arena, folks. Look that one up. But I think like Jaylen Brown again. I think that the Warriors kind of exposed this in the finals similarly with Jaylen Brown last year. It was nowhere near as bad as either of these Heat series. This is kind of a unique thing to the Miami Heat. A little bit.
And also Jaylen Brown was averaging like an efficient 20-something in that series. And there were times when Jason Tatum was going doo-doo mode in that series and Jaylen had to carry. And even though he turned the ball over a lot, you could probably live with the results.
That's what I'm saying. It really is just because the Miami Heat, this happened last year too. He was also unplayable, almost unplayable in the Heat series. It went to an entirely new level this year, but it really is the Miami Heat, very specifically. So that has to impact it. And then the other way that it needs to be impacted, the calculus on what you're doing this is, when are teams going to figure out how bad the CBA is? In 2 years, is the reality going to hit home and nobody's going to want to touch Jaylen Brown? Because that's going to happen. Yeah, that's going to happen. Is it going to happen 3 years or in 4 years? In which case you should absolutely sign Jaylen Brown because you'll still be able to trade him in 2 years, right? Because that's the idea.
We think the teams are going to start getting out ahead of it now.
I mean, the smart ones will.
Yeah,
I don't know,
and the cheap ones will.
Yeah, I mean,
the Charlotte Hornets, they get a new owner. Terry Rozier will be on the trade block immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's just so much. It's so weird to me how quickly all this is happening too, because nobody gets any chance to adapt here. Some people are really fucked. The Clippers
are so fucked.
Yeah. Clippers are fucked. I mean, they've been fucked, but I don't know, man. What are they even going to do? It's kind of crazy they didn't put an amnesty clause or something like that in here, to be honest.
Yeah.
They did in the 2010 CBA.
I at least think the Clippers don't have a ton of I don't think that the Clippers are going to have a ton of long-term contracts in the same way that if the Warriors bring back Draymond and Clay, which I don't think they're gonna I guess Apparently, they want to bring back Draymond, but we'll see with Clay because he wants a max extension at his age.
Wow. Luckily, they've got the experienced hand of the owner's son and Mike Dunleavy.
That's what I had next on my list here.
Yeah.
We have the Nepo replacements for the nepotism babies, Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Joe Lacob's sons, Kurt. Taking over the show. Bob Myers is gone in Golden State. And I don't know. We've kind of already made our peace with this. We could kind of see this coming from a mile away. I don't really have anything else to add other than like Bob Myers made the Draymond pick, which is an all-time great second-round pick. He did the Wiggins trade, which was awesome. Convinced KD and Iggy to sign there, which made them into at least a temporary, dynasty. And all of those things considered, he's still a Steph Curry merchant, and luck struck at the right time.
Yeah.
All things considered, probably pretty good at his job, and also towards the end made some incredibly questionable decisions, including most recently the Jordan Poole contract, which I can't say I hated at the time, and the James Wiseman pick and all those things. I mean, you hit, like you said, I think what you said was perfect, which is, if you don't have a shitty record, you just haven't been around long enough, like things on your record to be like, ew, that was kind of bad. Yeah. And Bob kind of outwore his stay. Like, by the end, like Steph had another supernova run and the Warriors won a finals. With the Wiggins move and the Poole move certainly helped that at the time. It might have handicapped them for the future, but for now, they are, they won an extra title because of those moves. And, yeah, I don't know. There's nothing really else to say. Like, he's gone, and like I kind of think that the Warriors are in an interesting position, to say the least now. I don't know what they're going to do this offseason, but like I think everyone thinks they're just going to dump Jordan Poole, and I'm like, what about the Warriors' last 5 years have told you that they think that they can't fix every situation?
Yeah, that part is going to be awesome, because I think this is the first offseason where that's actually they're not going to be able to do it. I think this is going to be the reality check.
That season is going to make people a little scared for a little bit.
Yeah, I the perfect time to be handing things over to your idiot son, like to have Succession playing out in
our idiot son.
In the fucking front office. Look, man, I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. Normally, I feel like I usually think I've got like a pretty good idea of like what an off season is going to look like. I have no fucking idea, like at all.
This is I expect from everything Woj has been teasing,
and
everything that like everyone's been saying. Like, I think parity is going to make people lose their fucking mind, and I think that combined with like the new CBA, like we could have a historic level of like trades and movement.
Like, I think we are. Like, I think slop. Buckle up, Hoggies.
I think it's going to be quick. I think we're going to be seeing moves like I remember another thing that Celtics Matt had said to us, and he's a bit of a cap nerd himself, and he said he said I think like a year from now you could see like, wait, Jared Allen was dumped for a late first round pick. So good players being moved just because they make too much money and teams need to save money. And like, I think that those teams are going to try to get ahead of it this summer. And if that is the case, we're just going to see some moves where we're like, I don't get this move. Like, why did this player? And it's part of the reason why we talked about like the Tobias Harris contract and these big expirings, Gordon Hayward, Tobias Harris, all these guys that have like contracts that we've seen for 4 years and been like, these are terrible contracts. But now we can be like, actually, maybe they'll have some value in trade. Like Mike Levin from Rights to Ricky Sanchez suggested to trade Tobias for Jordan Poole. And I was like, I think that on the idea that Jordan Poole has some untapped upside and that the Sixers need a guard that can create and have upside and be a ball handler and whatever. And he was basically like, he said that on the podcast. And I was like, I think that those are the kind of deals that we could see and be like, wait, what the fuck just happened? I don't think that specific deal is realistic, because I don't think that the Warriors are going to spend $500 million on their tax to bring in Tobias Harris, but
How do you think Wolves fans are going to react when the Spurs get Cat for taking 2 picks? Oh God!
Karl Anthony Towns and Jaden McDaniels have been traded to the Spurs for nothing.
The Spurs. I mean, has anything ever dropped? It's so funny that like the Rockets, the thing they need to do more now than ever with this CBA situation being dropped in their lap, they could clean up absorbing contracts and getting so many more picks. You're gonna fucking sign James Harden and accelerate their timetable.
Let's go.
Like, oh, poor Zion, man. Like, it's tough. But the Spurs, this dropped right into the Spurs lap. They're gonna get Wemby, and they're gonna be just in the perfect position to just fucking pick and choose with their salary.
We'll take this expiring contract in 2 firsts, and we'll take
we'll take Derek White back for a first round pick. Sure, yeah. Like,
I do think that I'll say this much.
Yeah.
I think Tobias Harris is going to be a special locker room leader for Victor Wembanyama. Look, the 2031 first round pick is going to hurt to send out. Yeah. Unprotected 10 years from now.
Oh no! That's the other thing is, like, what are the Clippers gonna do? They don't have draft picks, and they have to get off money. Like what? Like
Terrence Mann is just the thing that they get rid of to get off of. Like,
yeah,
they don't really have that many bad contracts on the books, though.
They don't. But it doesn't matter because they need to get rid of the money.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter that they're not bad. They just have a lot of money on their books. Like, it's tough, man. It's really tough.
They have $200 million on their books next year.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It's really tough. Like, ugh.
Well, this CBA shit isn't going to kick in for an extra year, right?
Yeah, it's 1 more year, but still, man, like.
Yeah, they have 148 on the books 2 years from now already. And $100 million of that is Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Ooh. That's tough, man.
That is really tough. All right, before we get out of here, 2 things. One, did you see that Vucevic and the Bulls are working on an extension?
I need a fucking Kevin. I mean, look, I make fun of him for being in the Jimmy Butler chair, but he doesn't deserve that, man. We gotta get Kev out of there, man. Like, I need a wellness check on my guy, Kev.
Yeah, the AK is doing a very weird job right now currently with the Bulls. We get reports a few days ago that they're looking to get off the Zach LaVine contract, and within 2 days of that, they're going to extend Vucevic.
So, when they say like for like $11 million a year,
I think it will probably be like 15 or 18.
Like
that's fine.
It's like okay
that's
if it's
fine.
Like that, you know, like if it's like 20 or 30 million, that's when it's no good.
If we get a notification that he's making like 25 million, I'm gonna be like, they're just done.
Yeah, I'm driving to wherever Kevin is and picking him up and not letting him be alone. Clearing out the sharp objects, like I'm clearing my schedule if that news blast comes through. I just, by the way, you know what I was thinking about too when I was thinking I'll just cap shit. Yeah, definitely Mark Cuban. You definitely don't want to give Jalen Brunson $20 million.
Oh my God.
Like, how bad is that? Like, that gets worse every day. Like, it's still getting worse.
The Knicks are like, we have one of the best contracts in the NBA on our book. Actually, even though Randall sucks ass in the playoffs, they have two All-Stars making a combined like $45 million a year.
Yeah, like
that's incredible to be an incredible position to be in.
Unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to jinx Knicks fans, but they're kind of the sleeping giants, of the next 3 years, with all their draft picks and the fact.
I think they're going to be patient. I mean, I've been on a Knicks podcast a few times called The Strickland, and on this podcast we've talked about what the Knicks should do next. And before the playoffs, we were like, well, the Heat might lose in the first round. Maybe you should trade for Jimmy Butler. And then this happened. So never mind. But his argument was pretty sound that he was like, I want to wait until the new CBA kicks in and then like see if 2 years from now we can get Donovan Mitchell or whoever, Giannis Antetokounmpo or whatever for like way less than you could, Luka for like way less than you would ever expect because the team's just like, well, we want to save money. So like, sure, we'll send you Luka for this prospect and 3 first-round picks or whatever. Because there were other reports that were like teams aren't going to be all willy-nilly with sending out first-round picks anymore. Because they're valuable now. Because like they need to hit and get cheap contracts because of this new CB. Having the 23rd pick in the draft is like who cares? But like Portland has the 23rd pick this year. And they're paying Dame and Jeremy Grant and then possibly a third guy they get. So they're like, we need to hit on that pick.
Yeah. I mean, hey, for one, I'm really excited for Malcolm Brogdon going to Houston. I think he's going to flourish under Ime.
I like how every rumor about the Rockets is like always interested in a guard when they're already signing James Harden and they have Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. Like, I guess the assumption is just that they're going to trade one of those guys. Yeah. Because like they've been linked to Fred VanVleet. They've been linked to Jaylen Brown. I know Jalen can be more of a wing, but he's kind of a 2. Like he's a 2 or a 3. Like
Kevin Porter Jr. and Joe Mazzulla are going to be
let's go
an unstoppable tandem. That's how down bad I am. I'm fantasizing about Kevin Porter Jr. for Malcolm Brogdon.
Honestly,
this is a dark place.
Look at KPJ's analytics. They're not bad. I know that sounds insane.
I've always kind of liked him to be honest. Like
he's still only 22 or 20. He just turned 23.
You need to have the infrastructure. I think he could have a really good NBA career, but he needs to go somewhere with like infrastructure, and that might not be the Celtics. To be honest,
he should probably go to the Heat. To be honest.
Oh my god. Don't. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm not putting that in the universe.
You put that. You are
Tyler Hero for Kevin Porter Jr. trade's going to go crazy.
Oh no!
Oh, Tyler Hero immediately becomes it becomes obvious that he's Jordan Poole 2.0. I actually am still not fully out on Jordan Poole. I know it sounds insane, but like I'm going to give the guy that got punched in the face by his teammate a year to like maybe go somewhere else and figure something out. Like
the Spurs getting 2 picks for taking him and then him immediately unlocking him is
with Wemby.
Yeah. The Spurs, I'm obsessed. I want like this is like taking me back to my old Celtics cap freak days in like 2013, where I just want to work on the Spurs. Like,
we should do a Spurs episode because I've been doing those streams on Playback. If you haven't been following, you should follow. We did one on Portland. We did one on Brooklyn. I'll have to do one on the Spurs at some point, and we'll just have to do like we'll have a Spurs person on and we'll just riff. That's also on the Unoball Patreon if you want access to those episodes. All the recordings are up on there, which is called Slot Preseason, where we run down the entire offseason for teams. But the Spurs are a really interesting one. The Wemby pick changes so much for the Spurs because what have we been saying about the Spurs for a year now? Which is, man, that's the perfect team just to plop a superstar onto. You got a great coach. You got Vassell and Keldon Johnson. Well, and all these just like wingy guys.
You know they're reclaiming a guy. Like they're taking a guy in a dump. They're going to get picks. Yes. And that guy's going to be good. Like it could be Zach LaVine. It could be Jordan Poole. It could be
Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero. Like it's going to be one of these fucking guys. Like
Yep. That's definitely going to happen. I mean, look, I'm personally here for the Tobias Harris Revenge Tour All-Star campaign next season.
I think Tyler Hero is going to be great in Milwaukee.
Going home, back to the homeland?
Yeah, Chris Middleton sided.
Oh, no. Let's not put. I don't want to make Miami too much better because Middleton's healthy. He's good. He's 10 times the player.
I get it. That's what I'm saying. That I feel like that's going to happen. They're going to give him the god tier adrenochrome, and he's just immediately going to. Yeah. Kyle Lowry. What happened to Kyle Lowry between the regular season and
it's
like
demonic.
the playoffs? The feds need to investigate that.
And also, what's funny about that is that like he still sucks like 50% of the time.
Yeah.
But then the other 50% of the time, you're like, oh, he's good again. Oh, there he is, just hitting some bullshit. Oh, but speaking of, and me and Nihilus Bucks are gonna do a stream on Playback this week on Wednesday night about the Bucks offseason, and then that's going to be up on Patreon. But the Bucks, when they hired their new coach, Adrian Griffin, Chris Middleton and Giannis were both in the meetings. So Middleton might be re-signing, because I would imagine that they wouldn't put him in the meetings if
classic
he's gone.
kayfabe. No, it's kayfabe.
It's leverage shit.
Yeah, in order to deceive your enemies, you must first
we
deceive
love
your
him.
friends. Yeah,
we love Chris Middleton. We want to pay him the max. Yeah. But last thing before we get out of here, finally the last thing. Apparently, the Wizards have gotten, we were supposed to talk about this on the last episode, and we ran out of time. The Wizards have gotten a full green light to rebuild this offseason. Which, as Will has pointed out, is the funniest thing ever. Because the Wizards finally deciding to tank after the Wemby draft. And then next year's like the worst draft ever. It's incredible, but that could be a team where you could see a real fire sale this offseason.
Yeah.
Like, sign and trade with Porzingis, sign and trade with Kuzma, Bradley Beal dump somewhere. Like, it's possible they actually go into the tank for the first time ever, and they have a real rebuild for the first time. And, like, I'm really interested to see, because if they put those guys on the block, I think that like, we've talked about, we've still never seen the sign and trade bidding war, right? We always talk about, like, one of these years there's going to be a sign and trade bidding war. But, like, those, I mean, Kuzma and Porzingis could really help teams. Like, they might get, like, a legit first-round pick or, like, a real prospect for either of those guys. Like, those guys both can help, like, contenders.
Yeah, I mean, like, fuck. I mean, the Celtics might be interested in Porzingis, which is a bummer, but, like, I don't know.
Brogdon and a first for Porzingis and a sign and trade?
Yeah. Oof, God, it'd probably need to be, like, Rob and some other stuff, which would
sure, if they're rebuilding,
bummer, yeah, and which, like, demonic. I don't want any part of that, for the record, but, like, you know,
Mazzulla ball, another guy who shoots threes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and protects the rim. So yeah, hypothetically, yeah. But that would, speaking of things that would make me not want to ever live in this world again, that would be one. Rob for Porzingis has got to be. That's one of the darkest trades of all time.
I guess my thing with Porzingis and Kuzma is kind of like, yes, they're good, but we've seen them try to be role players on teams, and they're not nearly as effective as they are when they're like we talked about, me and Chiodo were talking about this last night, and we were saying, like, he was like, dude, if you took the Bradley Beal, Kuzma, Porzingis Wizards and you dropped them in like 2011, they would be like the third best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Oh, no
second
doubt.
or third best
no
team.
Doubt. There's no doubt.
And like, there's so much talent now, but like, this is a team that was not even in playoff contention. Like, there was the last 2 months of the season, we didn't even talk about them, really.
The league needs to expand. I don't know why they're fucking dragging
their feet.
It's a slam dunk. Like, there's absolutely enough talent for it now.
Yep.
And especially if you're doing this bullshit where you're going to kill the middle class, you got to put two more teams on the board. Like, you got to give the players something. I think that's really going to happen once the players realize that CJ Grant and the boys really fucked them pretty good, like, in these negotiations. I think that's, like,
the next
might
step.
need to come down to that, yeah. Or there might
especially
be another.
If this draft really pops off, that's just more. There's like 3 or 4 guys in this draft that could be real stars.
Yeah,
that would be really tough if you just have so much more talent, and it's just like insane that, like, Bill always uses the DeMar Levine Bulls as an example of. He's like, dude, if he went through the Pacers roster from 2003 13 when they made the Eastern Conference Finals, and they were playing like Tyler Hansborough and Corey Joseph and like all these guys that you're just like these guys aren't good. He literally just went through and was like, or maybe it wasn't Corey Joseph, but it was like fringe rotation guard. And then he read down the Bulls top 8 guys and was like, the Bulls are the 10 seed and they're better than this team from a decade ago that was the 2 seed that made the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yes. You watch like any of those, I don't know, go back and watch like a game from like 2008, dude. It's a different sport. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy how bad it is. Like, I don't know. I really think the league's just got to expand. Bring the Sonics back.
Let's go.
I don't know who's
get a Vegas team for James Harden.
Man, I would kill him. I don't know if we need that. We need what's a funnier team? Canada needs a second team. Let's get
Vancouver again.
Yeah. Let's bring the Grizzlies back to Vancouver and make the current Grizzlies the small beans.
The Memphis Small Beans.
Yeah, the Memphis Small Beans. Yeah.
The small beam drafting team. So, any other thoughts on a Wizards rebuild? What are you excited for Bradley Beal to be a Celtic?
That, again, things that would make me disappear from this planet.
St. Louis connection?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. I mean, like, they've got interesting players. I mean,
I have a question for you. Actually, I just had this thought.
Yeah.
What if you traded Jaylen Brown for Simons in the 3rd pick, flip Simons at Brogdon to the Wizards for Beal? Then you had Beal, Scoot, Smart, White. I guess you have too many guards. Yeah, fuck that. You don't have enough wings. It's all guards and Tatum. And then Horford and Brogdon.
I like the idea of spinning Simons if they did make that deal, because he's a good player. Like
spin Simons for Levine.
Yeah.
I know you're not a Zach LaVine guy, but if you're losing Jaylen Brown,
but how would he get left on his contract?
4.
Why would you not just re-sign Jaylen Brown?
4. Yeah. It's a good point.
Yeah,
but you get Scoot Henderson. Possibly.
You do get Scoot Henderson. That's true.
That's why you do it, because you get a superstar gamble. And you'd still be really good. I just don't really know. Do we have any examples of teams developing a superstar? Kawhi, but Kawhi was 21 when he joined the Spurs.
We also talk about how he is the outlier of all outliers.
Yeah.
You cannot plan on that. Jalen has gotten better, and look, he's never going to be a true I don't think the passing is ever going to be there. Really,
no, it's pretty safe to say that.
But I don't know. I really do think there is a little bit of a matchup thing here with the Heat, where it's just they just are. This could be cope too. I mean, I think that they're just bad, but I don't know. Wizards, Kuzma. I would have interest in Corey Kispert or some of their
I want Kispert on Sixers. Yeah, he's another guy that I really want.
I would want I'm trying to think of who else is on that team. How down to the studs are they tearing it? Because I would trade a future 1st round pick for
your boy Daniel
I might
Gafford.
Trade our. I was just gonna say I might trade our 35th pick in this draft for Daniel Gafford.
Sure, he is making $12 million a year next year though. But I guess you guys will need a center once Al Horford ages out.
That we need a big, so another big. So Mike Muscala sadly did not quite cut it.
No, in the playoffs he didn't even get run. So
Denny, he's probably too young. They're probably keeping.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to keep Denny. I think they might keep Kispert just because unless a team's hey, we'll give you real value for Kispert, a higher pick or something. But I think they'll probably just keep Kispert. I think they'll keep all the guys that are on their rookie deal, and then they'll look to move everyone else.
Yeah, they're not moving Bradley Beal, I don't think. I think it's basically Kuzma and Porzingis, and I think Porzingis is expiring, right? Is that right?
He has a player option, but he can turn it down and just be a free agent. Same with Kuzma. They both do.
$36 million. Would you pick that up if you were Kristaps?
No, I think he was going to get a bigger contract. It might be like a smaller per year contract, but I think he'll get he with his injury problems, he's going to want like a 3-year, $100 million.
I was going to say, like, he had a pretty healthy season. Like, I feel like he's got to kind of get back out there. Like,
this is why we were saying about the Brogdon thing is why I would, if I were the Celtics, I would trade Brogdon, because you just got, he just won 6th man of the year. He was in your playoff rotation. I think that he proved to be a little bit more redundant than expected. And I also think that you're never going to get a healthy year like this from him again.
Yeah. DeLon Wright also on the Wizards, by the way.
That's an interesting guy that I think could help some teams.
It doesn't fit the Celtics necessarily, but I'm trying to think of who could use a player like that. Who needs?
We said the Nuggets before, but like the Nuggets won't be able to acquire him. But like a team that has a lot of offensive infrastructure that just needs like scrappy point of attack defenders.
Maybe your Sixers if Harden's out the door.
Yeah, I would probably I think Melton's probably a better fit, but
you can have both.
Yeah, you can have both. He's good. I mean, DeLon Wright's good. Like, it never hurts to have another ball handler. But I've been kind of thinking like I want to move in a direction where it's basically like the thing I talked about earlier is like the further you get into the playoffs, the more creators are valuable. It's not that DeLon can't create; it's that DeLon can't really shoot. So like, I would love to just have a team that's like Joel and a bunch of guys who can dribble, pass, and shoot for a year and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like, I would literally take a risk on, like, Gordon Hayward, Spencer Dinwiddie, and, like, all the guys that everyone fucking hates.
Gordon Hayward. God, I just realized you're getting Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward for Tobias Harris.
That was the trade that I was talking about before this podcast, and I was like, I kind of think it makes the Sixers better. Like,
I'm a Terry Rozier truther, man. Like, it got nasty at the end of the Kyrie season. He might have been like our second best player in the Hospital Celtics run.
He killed the Sixers in that run. And more importantly for me with Terry Rozier is that I get a lot of one of the things that the Sixers have really missed the last 2 years since they traded Seth Curry is having any dribble handoff partner for Joel. Like they always had JJ or Seth.
You know what?
And Terry's one of the best at that in the NBA. Like watch some fucking Hornets games, dude. He can like get around a screen and shoot pretty cleanly, get into the mid-range, get to the rim. Like there are games where you're like, he looks like, I've said it before, everyone thinks that I think Seth is closer to like a high level role player version of CJ McCollum. I think that Terry Rozier is more like not a high level role player, but like a role player version of Steph Curry. That's how he's been. That's how he's been in Charlotte. Like,
I want to point out too, he and Malcolm Brogdon make almost an identical amount of money.
Do you think that they would get him back?
I gotta admit,
for Mazzulla ball, he shoots a ton of threes,
and he's a shooter. We'd have the creation back. Like,
hold on, let me look.
A 35th. Hey, Hornets, you guys do well at the top of the second round.
We just traded them they traded one of their hits from the second round. They had Nick Richards.
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't being facetious.
Yeah, Jalen McDaniels.
Well.
Yeah. And they just traded us Jalen McDaniels for the pick that we gave back to them, which is at the top of the second round this year. I'm looking at it right. I'm looking at Terry's stats I'm looking at Terry's, because I know 2 years ago he shot like 8 threes a game at like 40%. And I was like, oh shit, okay, Terry Rozier really puts up threes, goddamn.
I mean, okay, so field goal percentage last year, 41%.
32%. He's very on ball now.
Yeah.
He had 2 really good seasons in Charlotte, though. 2021 and 2022, he shot 45% and 44% from the field. He shot 8.3 threes per game at 39% 2 years ago, 40% the year before, 37% last year. He dipped off like crazy this year. But also LaMelo didn't really play, so he wasn't playing with high-level creators.
Yeah.
He's a good free throw shooter. The one thing with Terry is like he doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but he does have some crazy shots that he takes, so that like is a little bit misleading.
Yeah. I
think Terry Rozier's kind of good.
This might be my new thing. I might be back
Rozier pilled.
I'm Terry Rozier pilled, man. Like,
what's the contract look like? What does he have? 3 years left?
3 years left. This coming year and then 2 more after, which
I'm telling you,
really
they're going to want to get
gels
off the
with
contract.
Celtics timeline. But that's like the exact Celtics timeline right now. Like they've got their guys for 2 more years. I guess it runs one longer with Jason Tatum's thing, but
so you better start hoping, if you want to keep Jalen, you better start hoping that they're actually going to draft Scoot, because you want them to draft a guard.
Fuck. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to plant some incriminating evidence against Brandon Miller, make it look like he did something bad. Don't know how I'm gonna pull that off. Jeez.
All right, let's end this episode before we get in trouble.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Terry Rozier, you are a Boston Celtic again.
Or a Philadelphia 76er, it's possible. I mean, I'm enticed. I'll say that much. Yeah. It is hard for me to be like, how is a 6'1", 190 guy going to be able to play with Maxey though? Yeah, that's tough from our position. It is certainly a size disadvantage, but still not even 30. 29 years old, Terry Rozier. All right. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Life is pain. Nothing good will ever happen to any of us ever.
Cool.
Nuggets in 4.
You're doubting it again. You're fucking doubting it again.
Never doubt. This time is real. It's happening. This man muted himself at the end.